I'll record it. So, okay, so Munsell, this system was actually created before computers were a big deal, but it's a way of thinking about colors in relationship, and it really is mathematical. He was in the Bauhaus in the 1930s, so German related, okay? But it's also, well, part of the reason I like it is based in the structure of color in the rainbow. And what it does is it gives us, and it is the best and easiest way to do colors when you're in the computer, is with HSB. HBS is what we're seeing here, but it's hue, which is what we usually think of as color. So that's here. It's actually on a 360-degree wheel. Part of it's cut out here for visualizing, but it's a complete 360-degree wheel of hue. And that's often, it's hue or chroma. That's what we really, a lot of times think of as color. Brightness is how much white there is. Okay, is it more white? So here, this is actually brightness. The center one has no hue value, but what it has is brightness at the top and it's dark at the bottom. Okay, so that is, but I'm trying to make sure I'm explaining it to you. Yes, that is correct. Okay, so here that's brightness is the vertical, so you have that. But then also then finally is saturation, is how much color is it? If something has no saturation, it's black, white, or gray. Okay, it's the underlying value when I talked about values, things like that. When something is high saturation, it's these guys way out on the edge. So this is actually the saturation line. And you can see that the blue starts to disappear as we go into the middle. Okay, that the red, here's a pretty bright red, but as you bring down the saturation, it becomes a different color. It becomes something that is different, but it's still based on this original hue. So that's really what's in operation here. And so what I did is just to show this to you, that you can see it. This is the color picker that I think pretty much still looks like this. And it is in both Illustrator, it's in Photoshop, it's in InDesign, it's in, it's in Adobe Premiere, it's in all these different tools, but it's probably also in Canva, it's probably also in a whole bunch of other tools you use. And what I'm talking about here is HSB, these three right here. But you can also operate on RGB, okay, that's red, green, blue that we talked about. And there's CMYK. And while if you're very experienced in these, this is like RGB is 255 levels of red, 255 levels of green, 255 levels of blue. So writing the numbers, there's no sense of logic and you can't really build relationships. Whereas with using the Munsell system, we can use math as our friend and we can build things on this basis. So in this particular version, and whatever you have clicked here, so this is hue. So this bar becomes hue, all right? And then the other two dimensions go into this square. So the x-axis is saturation and what am I saying? Yes, the x-axis is saturation of the color and the y-axis is brightness, okay, or value. So we can look through a few of these. Let's see. People popping in and out. Okay, so there, that's purple. And what you see is here, the hue is 341, close to red. As we come down, the purple is 304. And remember, there's 300, and that's why there's this little circle sign. That means degrees. So there's degrees. And then as we change, so 270 becomes, this is more, I guess, of a lavender or a brighter kind of, maybe not purple. This looks more what I would call purple because it's darker and it is different and it has less red in it, but it's still between red and blue. So that's 273. We go 234, that's blue. One form of blue. Then I make this huge jump to 180. What you can see in this circle, which is kind of interesting about it, is there's more blue and green variations than any other colors, because the red area, the red purple area is a pretty small proportion. The orange to yellow area down at the bottom, okay, that is red to yellow, and this is red to purple, is a much smaller area. So you can see these circles tell us that information. So you go down to 120 and you're in that green. You go to 56 or 60, it's in that neighborhood, is the yellow. And we're running 90% saturation, 90% brightness on both of those. So then orange is 33, 30%. And then back to 0 again, you're at red. So 0 and 360 are the same. And then if you do some other changes, so now its brightness is clicked. So now this bar is representing brightness. The x-axis has now become the hue line. So that's all the different hues, okay? And saturation is the y-axis. So how saturated is it? So right now we're fully bright. So that means the bottom here is in white, because if you have a full brightness, 100%, that's white behind that hue. And if you pull out saturation, okay, you're going to go toward white. So that's how the box works. That's how the slider works. Then here, this is clicked on saturation. So wait, this is now clicked on saturation. So this, okay, brightness is still 100%. So this bar takes that hue up in the corner, which the hue is 0, which was red, and it's up there, okay? Brightness is now the y-axis, but what we're looking here is saturation, so you can control that. So you click these buttons and this will be more useful, okay? Now, beyond that, there are relationships between colors, and those, we'll take a look at those relationships, okay? So here, these are warm colors. What you see is very interesting. The green is actually kind of neutral. So cool colors, green stays in the middle, and here green stays in the middle. So it can kind of be included either way, but the red colors here, the red, orange, yellow, warm colors. Warm colors move forward. I've put it on black just so you see that. And then when we go down here, these are the cool colors, blue to purple. And okay, maybe I should just be doing the presentation. But so those are cool colors. Cool colors tend to recede. They're not as exciting. They're not as dynamic. In fact, sports teams that are red tend to be, it's more exciting. I remember going to an American football game and everybody wore red because it was that university's color, and it was intense. I mean, it really was. I went to another American football game at a place I taught at Penn State. The color was blue. So even with people in blue, it was kind of more of a navy blue. It didn't feel as passionate. It didn't feel as exciting, those things. Color does matter. So yeah, I could go into a whole bunch of sports things, and I know you guys aren't as big on the sport things. Okay, so then we can look at relationships. Okay, hue contrast. So this is red to cyan. This is orange to blue. This is green to cranberry. Okay, and essentially these are 180 degrees on the, these are 180 degrees on the, on Munsell's wheel. These are exact opposites of one another. This is starting to drive me a bit mad. So I'm gonna play, there we go. I think this will be better. So there, that's hue contrast. So those are contrasts in hue. That can be done. We can also do saturation contrast. So you could work with a single color, and what Munsell does is it lets you stay in that color by controlling the hue, whether it's yellow, red, yellow, blue, whatever it is. But then you can do different variations of saturation. You can do different variations of brightness. And you can essentially be working in one color, in one hue, and you can be working monochromatically, which means with one color. And that doesn't necessarily mean black and white. It can be done this way. So we talked about in visual design, some of the different contrasts. When I showed you that one picture of the little tiny spot of red of the guy at the Great Wall, okay, that was the red versus the sort of beiges, the dull. But part of it was that the red also had hue, but it also had a much stronger saturation of that color. And the rest of the image felt a little bit more gray-like. It was very dull. So that had some hue contrast, but it also very much had saturation contrast with the amount of color in it. Okay, so brightness for sure. And then there are things about color relationships that when we think about readability. And the best way you want to think about readability and what colors go well together is look at traffic signs, because traffic signs are seen by people driving fast. They need to be seen to keep people safe. And here, there have been a lot of studies and things, and really generally the most readable, the most readable colors for letters and things like that, okay, is white on blue and white on green. Okay, and think about it, these are information signs on the highway that are more than, say, okay, so white on red, stop sign, we know that. But a large part of what we understand about a stop sign is its shape. So it could say it in Arabic, it could say it, I've seen it in Portuguese, and a lot of things. But the point is, I know because of the shape of the sign, what it says in Portuguese is pare, and I don't speak Portuguese. I know one word, obrigado, which means thank you, okay? But I know that means stop because of the shape of the sign and the red. Just like yield signs are very standard, things like that. You do have differences between Europe and the US, between the US and Canada, different things like that, and even here. So when there's more information and there's more detailed reading, it is white on blue. Black on yellow, very legible. Here you won't see as much text, but you'll see images. Black on yellow. And then white on red, red immediately on a highway is telling you information. And while one way is pretty important, it's just plain old black on white. And white on black, you don't really see here, but it does have visibility. So look, if you're ever thinking, how do I make it the most readable? The thing is, you don't want dark colors on dark colors. All of these, I think what you can see is there is a brightness contrast. There is, okay, well, I guess no, white on red is not so much of a brightness contrast, but black on red, not very visible. Black on blue, not visible. Black goes on yellow, which is a lighter, brighter color. So those combinations, don't ever put dark on dark. It's not readable. It just doesn't look good. So, all right. And go back here. I don't know what's happening now. Okay. Something happened. Okay. All right. Cool. Okay. This is very weird. All right. I'm going to pause just for a moment. I'll be back in a second. So I'm going to pause right at this moment. So we'll keep going. Wait, I am not sharing. Okay. All right, let's hope it keeps working now. I need to put my chat window up again. All right. Okay, thanks. All right. There we go. All right. So readability, I hope that makes sense. All right. So there's also colored relationships, and that's about doing colored frames. Okay. So looking at what color is the frame around an image. Anybody tell me where this is? Just curious.
The frame around the image? You mean
the images from the UAE? Do you know? Okay. Nobody's been to MotionGate?
No.
Okay. I know they had some issues. Okay. But, okay, so if you look at this, and in general, what happens when you use black, it's absorbing all the colors around it. So in essence, it lets the colors in the picture shine. Part of the reason I chose this picture, I mean, it's really kind of a mess, but it has a lot of colors in it. The colors are very vibrant. I don't even know what this is from. It's from some cartoon or something. If somebody wanted to tell me, I would listen to you, or it's some weird cartoony thing. And the ride is a big drop. So it's supposed to be kind of scary. It does get scarier at night. But on black, I tend to like to use black frames, because what happens is when we look at this, okay, when we put it on a white frame, now that starts to emphasize the white or the lightness in the picture. So for me, like if you look at the word zombie, okay, and you see that the wood background, the kind of raw wood, okay, for me, when I move it, okay, now it's not doing it, but when I go to white, it becomes kind of brighter. Even the teddy bear with the crossed out eyes and those things become brighter. The white gets emphasized more. The blue, now our brain, it sort of draws us in, and we focus more on the blue. So it does matter. Here, the red is popping more. I have to say the sort of pinkish outline on the teddy bear and the sunset and all that, I wasn't as focused on it. I mean, it's definitely there now that I've seen it, but that background, how when an image is new or something, will have us see it more. Okay, yellow, probably the yellow in the sunset and the yellow in the background on the ride itself, etc. So the color of your frame matters. When in doubt, use a black frame, okay, for a photo, and then sort of work from there. I have seen some pictures, and I think even for some of your posters, whether it's your class or the other class, some of them have really worked with other colors, but as that color relates to the photograph, the two work together very well. Okay, so there's also the notion what we work with are color palettes. All right, and color palettes are groups of colors together, and these are sort of established. These are things that work. That's another value of Munsell. So I was talking to you before about monochrome. So this is red monochrome. So these, in this shirt and in this hat, the differences are brightness, saturation, but it's zero. The hue stays at zero, and then there's variation in the color. So this one's yellow. It's interesting when you darken up yellow, it really starts to become a little more greenish, things like that. But this is yellow at 60. This is green at 120. And so hopefully you can see even this, which we would call a monochrome color palette, we're working with those greens, can work together. You can have a dark green and a light green, and the two, you could put text in light green on top of dark green and it would be very legible. Especially this light green on that dark green. So it's just about being careful. And what's interesting is this is defining this as kind of this very bright green, and none of these are that bright green. Green is one of those very interesting colors, how it reacts. And this is just flat out what we sort of think as monochrome, and that is where saturation is zero. And so then we work on different brightness. And because saturation is zero, the hue doesn't matter. This is black and white and gray, which is black and white. The next thing is analogous color schemes, and that's where all the colors are in the same neighborhood on the color wheel. And so here, these are all warm colors. There's no contrast. There's none of those things that we did talk about with the one design thing. So you could work with this. Okay, so those are grouped together. They are analogous. These are actually evenly distributed on one side of the wheel. And even though they're starting to spread out more, they're still very close to one another. And none of them is on the opposite. The opposite would be over here, kind of this more purpley lavender kind of color. So also analogous. And then even in the blues, so the blues are a little more grouped. Then we go direct complementary, and that is 180 degrees apart. So this red is zero. This cyan is 180 degrees. Now, what you can see here, all right, these do have black outlines, but there's almost a three-dimensionality to that, because when two direct complementary colors come together, if you actually made them transparent and put them over one another, they would form gray because they're opposite. They would cancel each other out, and it would be gray. The colors would go away. But what happens here is at the edges, your brain gives you some of that gray, and there's even some sense the lines become more intense. There's a little bit of a three-dimensional thing, especially with this circle and the star with the button. Okay, so this is, as you can see over here, starting point of the yellow, 180 degrees is the blue, direct complementary. Sorry. Okay. Then we could call black and white direct complementary, even though they're not different in hue, but they are completely different in terms of brightness or value. Okay. So we were looking at analogous a minute ago. When analogous becomes interesting is when you do something that's called a split complementary, which is a group of colors together. So the light blue, the kind of aqua, and the more green. And then you have the red as the opposite. And then the red just pops because it's on the other side of the wheel. So these are ways you can develop. And you can use the math to start putting the pieces together, but then you make adjustments. It's not about being absolute to the math. So here, whether you think it's interesting or not, this one, wow, the yellow really goes bam in terms of being on the opposite side of the purple blue, couple forms of blue and sort of the in-between to purple. Okay, this one's pretty fun and crazy. Okay, so that's kind of the opposite of that yellow. This has the analogous group, and then the split on the opposite side. So then there's also where you get strange is using a triangle. So because it's 360 degrees, each one of these groups of colors, the three colors are not direct complementary, but they're significantly far away from the other ones. So actually it's 120 degrees apart. If 180 is opposite, 120 degrees is a triangle. And so you get these combinations that maybe even you hadn't thought of. This feels very 80s to me. This may have been, something that became a thing in the 80s. So these are all those triangles, and these would be colors that I've shown you sort of the raw math of them being 120 degrees apart from one another. But if you were going to use it, you'd want to make some adjustments and to make the different parts pop and work together. That one's actually kind of cool and fun. Then you could be rectangular, which is 90 degrees apart. And anybody tell me what that looks like? Whose logo?
Windows.
There you go. All right. Who was that?
Uh-huh.
All right. Thanks, Mama. Yeah, absolutely. So you can see that coming up with those colors is, for me, I take photographs. So a lot of times when I'm doing a design, coming up with the colors is difficult for me because I don't think in that way. I sort of see them. But with these, using the Munsell wheel, you can develop these kind of color sets. So that one definitely not, but those could be interesting colors together. Definitely not Microsoft. The first one is there. So there are some different variations. Okay. So there are some other ways to do it, but those are really fundamental ways. There's also, you can find color palettes from the work that other people have done. So, or that, that are designed, created, etc. So if we look at these logos, okay, obviously the Apple logo is black. It used to be the rainbow, but here we've got black and gold for Amazon, the Beats red, the darker red on Pinterest, the Toblerone with the goldish and the orange red, the FedEx, which is pretty close to direct complementary to direct contrast. Everybody loves the Baskin Robbins, right? And there's the rainbow and those things. So most of these companies have paid big money for somebody to design logos. So they have been very careful about the colors. And you can see even here in the middle, not all reds are alike. The LG becomes more pink. The Pinterest is a little more burgundy. The Beats seems pretty straight up red. And actually this whole thing looks a little muted because Baskin Robbins is way more bam in your face. Okay, so, all right, so it looks like, all right, okay, sorry, it's kind of giving me trouble again. That's just, I think it's because it's just massive and it's big pictures. Okay, so that goes in a little closer, but here is just a massive array of logos that could give you colors that you think are interesting. White on blue, the two colors of MasterCard, the particular blue and red of Pepsi, the color of red on Levi's, there's Amazon again. Just the mixes of color, you could probably, it's not here, the new Google, things like that. Harley Davidson, the orange and black. From a Western perspective, if you're ever trying to communicate with Westerners, or at least people from the US like me, black and orange is generally not a good combination. It feels like Halloween. So you have to be really careful how you use that. Now, I've lived in other places where it doesn't communicate that, and I've changed how I look at student work and things. But if US people will almost to the person have that sense. So even since I'm into football. Some of these work and don't. This is last year's shirts, thankfully. And you can see it's dominantly red and blue, and then wolves are yellow and black. But you can get colors from these things. There have been years, the Etihad logos have been, sorry, the Man City. They had a shirt in New York City that was fantastic. It was dark blue, and the Etihad was a dark blue purple, so it was kind of that purple, the whole shirt. And then the Etihad Airways was an orange. Almost bought it. Almost bought it. It looked really cool. I actually don't think they had my size. That's how much I liked it. But also we can look at environments. So this is Scooby-Doo at Warner Brothers World, and I've photographed in the ride, and I would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for these nosy kids. But when you look at it, this is based on a comic strip, or sorry, it was a TV show. And they designed the colors. You have sort of, I forgot her name, but she's the opposite of the Brainiac over here, and then Shaggy, and you have these different color palettes and color combinations and all these things. Velma, this is Velma, and I'm forgetting her name. But there's, and they're opposites in personalities and all that, but there's a whole lot of red hair and the different parts. And then Scooby's like brown, and then the poor guy. So they're looking at it totally up close. You can see there's color combinations that might be useful from the work that other people have done. I like street art, and some street art can give us clues to doing things. This is in Thessaloniki in Greece, but you can find there on the sign, that's actually an interesting combination of colors. And remember, in Photoshop, even in Illustrator, you can have a photo, you can take the eyedropper tool, and you could get these colors. This yellow and this light blue, whoops, on the black. Okay, that's a pretty cool idea. That could be interesting. You could get style ideas of like the drippy paint and stuff, but also it's about, at this point, we're looking at colors. The frame, this is a little overexposed, but when you look at it, it's got the gold and kind of the blue glass in it, and the two together can make some interesting things. And then you can have the sky up in the top. The Irani mosque in the old section, there's a whole bunch of different color combinations that could be interesting from that. So you can find them from culture, from other people's work. So there are other ways. This is back at Motion Gate. This is Madagascar, obviously, inside the Dreamer. Every one of the posters inside this place, the sign itself, this place is so, the colors are mad and crazy. And you can just see combinations. This is even a dark blue, purplish on a lavender. You've got the stuff with the tiger over here, and those elements. This is a place you can take pieces from. Okay, this is some more street art. This is from New York. And somebody took the time to make these color decisions, and they may or may not work for you, but the color can be used. This is Disney. Disney is crazy for planning all these things and all these colors. And the blue, the light blue on the brown, and actually that stuff's going to be changing. So they're changing the theme of it. So it'll be interesting what happens to this barn if it becomes more New Orleans. But okay, even things like, I collect somewhat, used to do it a lot more, but these are 3 Dubai pins from the Hard Rock in Dubai. Gosh, they've got to be 5, 6 years old. Those are some of my favorite ones ever made. And it's the patterns, but it's also the color combinations that someone took the time to make. This is just natural environment. This is Media City in Dubai. And So from this photograph, you could see combinations of colors. You got a lot of grays and blacks, and then even the browns. But here you've got the green, yellow, and the red, and those different objects and parts. Okay, there are companies that get paid money to create color palettes. And there are also companies and applications that will generate color palettes for you. In fact, in Illustrator, you can choose a color and it will show you some different palettes that you could build around that color. So that's another place to find it. So those exist. I also think a great place to look is in nature, because there's the lighter the lighter gold, the gold of the sand, the gold red, and then you've got the blue of the sky. So you can operate from that, and you can take what God gave us in nature, and if it's been captured in a photograph. So this is a sunset before the sunsets, a lot of gold, brown, all those sorts of colors. Gives us a sense this is actually the same place after sunset, and some amazing colors that could be used together. You could just grab them and build a color palette. This is just some flowers, the purple and the green, bam. Okay, this is limited depth of field, but there still is because of the color contrast, there's a bam factor. Even here, the lion waiting, the yellow in his eyes, you can see that the sun is in his eyes because his pupils are super dilated. He's pretty young because he's got the mohawk, but you've got some of the touches of green. Even from this, you could build a color palette that's fairly natural. And even in this simple picture of waves of sand near Liwa, there's a lot of color in this sand. So you could pull out something, and then you could even develop this that would be fairly analogous. And then you could get from Munsell, you could get a contrasting color. So, okay. So let's go back to the psychology and look for a minute. And this stuff seems to become debatable as well. But what kind of colors do different audiences, do different people prefer? All right. And so these are some things. Men prefer brighter colors, more intense colors. Women prefer softer colors, especially in the 70s. If you ever watch Golden Girls, holy mackerel, they wear lots of pastels. And men go toward shades, which are darkening of colors. And apparently women in general tend to prefer tints, which is an addition of white. So tints have higher brightness, shades have lower brightness. And men like more saturation to begin with. This is some color preferences by gender. Obviously, blue is highly favored. So here, just purple and red change places. Okay, so there are some colors that generally people like, and then some of them change a bit. It's when you get down here, but generally, it looks like stay away from brown, yellow, orange. You don't see a lot of orange, depending who your audience, but that seems to be going either way. Okay. And this actually shows the idea that women see more detail in color. Eggplant, grape, orchid, lavender, plum, maroon, and a dude will just say purple. I've kind of been doing that even in discussing this. So carnation, strawberry, bubblegum, magenta, salmon. See, salmon would be a little different. Defined by a woman might be, just pink. Okay, so that's interesting. So like if you're going to paint your house and you're talking to your husband, magenta. Yeah, magenta is a nice color. And your husband doesn't understand the difference between magenta and strawberry, then don't blame me. It's psychology. But please don't wear cowboy boots like that. That's just weird. Okay, then here, even by age, okay, you can see the strength there as well of blue, green, red. So, but the interesting thing, as people get older, red becomes less of a favorite in general. But brown, you know, goes from being top least favorite to going into the middle. And then in old age, it looks like red comes back again, 70 plus. Okay, so, and that actually shows some of our reversion to our younger age, which is interesting. Okay, so then we can look at some things based on kids, male, female. They actually do tests with babies and stuff, and they see how they react to different colors. So that that is a tested thing. And even babies are able to react if the babies stare at it, or like it's showing if the babies, you know, close their eyes. So they're doing some gender specific. So that's blue rings. So that's boys, pink is girls. Okay, so we can see that some of these, okay, that the choices change. Teenagers start to get a little darker, more intense. Young adults, Carolina blue, that's interesting. Okay, so you see adults, etc. So this can tell you, this could, you know, depending on your audience, you might want to think about your colors and your pictures. Okay, senior citizens, 55 or more. Sorry, I'm in that category. I do not like those colors. Suave, mauve. Okay, give me a break. No, I'm still much more bright colors, black and white, things like that. I'm kind of feeling a bit more middle-aged rather than a senior citizen. Okay, in cultures and nationalities, I think these logos are showing some of those differences. Looks like Korea has a little more love for orange. Tokyo, everything about Japanese design and culture is about simplicity. So the black and white and the red make sense. In cultures, all right, the first two things to be identified in a language are black and white. And then what happens is the first color is red. And red, obviously, it's because you bleed. It's because your face gets a little red. Cecilia and I went to train Yas last night, and I had a nice rosy glow for quite a while after doing only 2 laps on a bicycle around the race course. So I guess that's about 10 kilometers. So for someone who hadn't done anything, but the red comes. And then beyond that, then the colors start to change. In Zulu culture in South Africa, there's not a lot of differentiation between the blue of the sky and the green of the grass. It has some of the same words describing it. Different culture. In Eskimo culture, there are a zillion words for snow because they're exposed to it. In Polynesian cultures, there's more words for surf, for what the surf looks like, how, you know, and the color of things related to it. So those things happen. These things occur over time. And okay, so this is saying, all right, now this doesn't have, so blue is obviously very, very popular. Okay, Thailand pushes red down. Okay, so Britain, Germany, interestingly in the US, red is down. That's very interesting. Okay, and so you can see that, I mean, for wearing clothes, most of my clothes are blue. So that would be very true. And in fact, I've got some brown stuff, but it's hard for me to wear them and it doesn't seem to go with anything. But that gives you some sense by nationality. This is another way of looking at it. Yeah, that's based on basically the same information showing you by size and sliver. And so the middle part is the favored. So now color and light. Okay. All right. In general, we think of light as being, especially outdoor light, as being white. And in general, we think of any light being white. Okay. So sometimes what happens is in a photograph, in a place, the color of that light changes the color of how things around it look. And in fact, most outdoor light, this light is very blue. Has anybody ever, you sat in front of your makeup mirror, and maybe you had something like, I've got a little circle light here, okay? And you've done your makeup perfectly. Then you go to an event or something and you look like you're the Walking Dead. Anybody had that happen? And you're like, what the heck happened? Okay, well, the reason for that is the change in the color of that light. That probably, it could even happen if you did like a brown light, and then you did something at home. Let me stop the share for a minute, and I can show you. I actually have this light is adjusted to brown light, which is warm indoor light, and my ring light to the side here, my fill light, is adjusted to brown. And if I go back over here, if I go, wait, this will look better if I share. Okay, if I come back over here to the zoom, I can show you that I can change the white balance. Okay, that is like super brown. That's yellow. Okay, or I can pull back down over here and it could be more blue, and you can see this is probably a little more natural. And you can see if I get in here, then my white shirt starts to get a little brown. And this is there, that looks a little warmer. I look less pasty white, and I am kind of pasty white, but sorry. So there you get, the blue is so strong from the screen in my glasses. It's actually interesting that the ring light in my glasses look blue as well, because it is absolutely adjusted to brown. So in different light, things will look different, because remember, a lot of the color we see is just a reflection, okay, is what that object allows you to see. So in this picture, you have blues and greens, and that works with the color of the light. So here, okay. So color light is blue. This is outdoor light, even though the child is indoors. That's sunlight coming in the middle of the day. And sunlight becomes more brown later in the day. But that's natural light coming in a window. So we sort of see it as white. It's actually blue. Here, the sky is blue. The reason the sky is blue is because of the dominance of it. But this it's very natural, okay? But then we look at brown, which is a reduced color temperature, okay? And being true to that light, and with things adjusted toward outdoor light, indoor light will look brown. If you think of firelight is brown, orange. When we see it, it feels warm, okay? Even if a picture like this, if it was adjusted to the blue side, it would look colder. It would be less inviting and warm. So color does change. This one, actually, you can see the blue outside the window. Okay, even with the sun setting, the outside light is very blue, and this color is adjusted to the brown indoors. And then there's a lot of brown stuff going on. But this light fixture to the right of the woman, those lights look white. No, they're brown. So it's adjusted to that. So outside the window is like creepy, weird blue, but that's actually because of the adjustment of the light. And then the ugliest light there is fluorescent light, which is green. And there's places fluorescent light can be adjusted in our labs, fluorescent light's adjusted. But when we see these, fluorescent is a particular kind of light, and in its most basic form gives off a green kind of glow. And that will really destroy your hard work on your makeup or whatever. Even here, those fluorescent lights, okay, create a color that is happening. So that's all the color stuff. On Sunday, I'm going to talk about typography, and we'll keep moving forward. Your group needs to start thinking about your words. I think I'll wait on that, and I'll do a class activity on that on Sunday. So you guys need to be discussing with each other what you're going to do for your